Welcome to the Poisoner's Cabinet. I'm Sinead.
And I'm here as well. Hello.
And this is your weekly podcast exploring the lives of the great poisoners, macabre murders and captivating crimes from across the centuries, and creating curious cocktails inspired by the tales that we tell. And it's episode 284, and it's a special episode. Special episode, Nick.
Special.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Are you okay?
I'm surviving.
You're surviving?
It's been an interesting week.
It has been an interesting week for poor Nick. But then we thought, you know what we should do this week? We should have a special episode with a special guest.
Something we've been meaning to for a while.
Yeah, we've been meaning to drag them back onto the show. Drag them kicking and screaming. And people have been theorising who it could possibly be. I think it's time for us to say hello to Roanna Bond.
Hello, Roanna Bond.
Hello. Hi, nice to be back. Thanks for having me.
Roanna Bond is a dear friend of ours and a friend of the show. She has appeared on an Expert Witness episode in the past. Ro has added her expertise to some of the Patreon episodes we've done. But today we wanted to have a special episode with her, diving into some of the psychology, some of the dark minds of criminals, of some of the crimes that are out there, of different kinds of...
Pathology?
Good word.
Sound professional now, don't you?
Sound professional.
No,
I'm just
sounds
going to make
good.
shit up, honestly.
Just throw in words like that and it'll be fine.
The pathology, the motivations, the why of so many true crimes out there. We have asked Roanna on the show because she's an expert in all things of the head.
Especially hair.
Especially hair.
Especially hair.
Very
Fresh
lovely
from a
hair.
haircut yesterday, yes.
We've been discussing this on our After Dark warm-up thing, but you do have beautiful hair, Ro.
Thank you very
Lovely.
much.
And I hope you enjoyed your massage that apparently the hairdresser insisted you have.
I did, because as we were discussing, he thought I looked stressed, so he gave me a sort of free massage, which was very nice.
That's very nice. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
why not?
Don't turn down a free massage.
I mean, should happen more often in life. When you walk into Sainsbury's, supermarkets are quite so stressful.
That'd be ideal, I think. Yeah.
Peas, beans, bread, massage.
What were you making?
I don't know.
Peas, beans,
A really rustic peasant feast from the past.
Peasy beanie sandwich.
I was
That's
thinking
normal,
sandwich. No spread, just beans.
Just beans and peas. Lovely.
Delicious. From that, please do tell us why you're a professional in your field. Highly
do enjoy
respected.
peas and beans.
So for those who don't know, Roanna, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, okay. So I am a psychotherapist. I'm a drama therapist originally by training, and then I worked in the NHS for about 12 years in a personality disorder unit, so sort of adult mental health and trauma. That's my background, really.
Drama therapist, what does that involve?
It always sounds sort of slightly funny and flighty, I think. So it's a bit like with art therapy or music therapy, but it sort of uses theatre as a way of exploring the self and different parts of the self. So you sort of look at stories and myths, actually, and folklore quite often to explore different aspects of the psyche that sort of people then connect with, and they can sort of express parts of themselves they maybe don't let themselves express normally.
We don't do any of that, Nick,
No.
do we? No, yeah.
None of that.
Makes our job seem quite pointless.
But sort of delving into the unconscious, I bet you do sort of tap into aspects of the unconscious in sort of some of your episodes and stories. I'm sure you do.
We try to, yes, while drinking heavily.
As a
And
therapist,
making bad
that's,
jokes around it, yeah. So, but we like to think we're helping people.
Absolutely.
We like to think that.
In a
You
different
actually
way.
do. You're also a theatre director as well.
I am,
And
yes.
performer.
Yes, so I work with a theatre company and we do lots of productions and plays, and similarly, quite often I quite enjoy working with plays that have maybe a exploration of the human mind, I guess, and the human condition, and something, I guess it ties into today's topics a bit. It's the things that are a little bit to the darker side of human nature, exploring things that we are capable of that we're maybe a bit frightened of or a bit unaware of. Yeah, those things appeal. They're interesting.
That's our favourite bit as well. The darker
Isn't
side
it?
of human nature. But with some laughs, generally with it.
Generally be a few laughs in there somewhere.
Yeah,
We'll crowbar them in when we can.
And that is the plan for today. So today on this special episode, there are some topics that we wanted to talk to Roanna about. There are things that we have mentioned on previous episodes when me and Nick have been chatting. Said we must ask Ro about this. We really want to ask Ro because while we may have theories and we may read up on certain pathologies, is the word that
Yes,
Ro
the
just
word,
taught
yes.
me to use in this sentence. I didn't. I thought it meant something else. Honestly, I was like, oh, bodies with the chemicals.
You didn't have to admit that. You could just
But this is, and hence the show, right? And hence this is what we do. But while we read up on these things and we can discuss them and theorize them, it's always really handy to have someone who has trained in this field and you know it inside out and you can offer different insight. And it's an area that people find endlessly fascinating. It's why people are drawn to true crime again and again, not just to hear the gory, weird, hilarious details with us, but also why did this happen and what was going through someone's mind when they were doing it. We can't promise to solve every case that's out there and give
no,
you...
that would
We'll
be
give it a go.
a big
I think we could. We should. There'll be questions that we'll ask you. Obviously, who was Jack the Ripper? We'll need your theories.
I do
on
know.
That. Oh, you do know. Good,
Yes.
good. Hold on to that. But yes, we're going to cover a range of topics, as is our wont. We are good friends. We will be taking a light-hearted, but we're going to deep dive into some areas with Ro. So this will be serious in parts. There will be bits we'll try and say, obviously, that some of the content may be triggering by its nature, but we're going to be respectful and we're going to think about it a lot, but also bring the lightness as we always do to the show. But speaking of delving into people's minds and going with what we find, I think it is time for us to thank our delicious Patreon subscribers.
Yes, most certainly. And this week we have to say thank you very much to Emily Geesey
To Jackie.
and to Jasmine.
Thank you, you sexy,
Marvellous.
sexy Patreon subscribers. We had fun on Patreon this week. We had a gruesome story, a gruesome recent-ish story, 1970. And it's a topic we will dive into today as well. We talked about the hippie cannibal.
What a delightful subject that was.
It was bizarre, that story. And we'll give hints of it away maybe when we're talking about stuff today. But yes, gruesome, but weird.
Gruesome. Mainly gruesome.
Just mainly gruesome. If you want to know what the hell we're talking about, please do consider joining us on patreon.com/The Poisonous Cabinet, where you get extra episodes from us every week, as well as bags of bonus content and material. We had our book club recently where we were talking about Rebecca. Wonderful session that we had with our Patreon subscribers. There's videos on there, and it's a lovely community where everyone can go and chat. This is the way to support the show. It's very much appreciated. There are different tiers available on there, and you can go over and wander, and it's completely flexible. Well, you two, are you ready
yes.
Probably. I think so.
to drink cocktails and talk about poison?
Yes.
Or we could drink poison and talk about cocktails.
It's also an option.
Both sound good.
Should we go with the first one?
Yeah, I think it's better.
Hooray, hooray, hooray. It is everyone's story this week. We're going to have lots of topics, but we can't possibly talk about anything without a cocktail in hand. As you know, dear listeners, every week we choose a secret ingredient that is inspired by the tale that we tell, and it will flavour our cocktail of the week. Nick?
Yes.
I've not discussed this with you.
No. This is entirely new.
But this week's secret ingredient is...
It's Ro!
Yay! I always go well with cocktails. What can I say?
Is that what yours was based on?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was actually going to go with madness. Madness.
Absinthe.
I can,
Absinthe.
you can have some absinthe if you like.
I mean, we might not finish this podcast.
And Ro, common misconception that absinthe causes madness. It's just bastard strong.
It's just very strong.
If you drank as many brandies, then you'd also go mad.
But don't they say after 2 absinthes you could die? It's that strong. I'm sure I heard that.
No.
No, I'm sure that's true.
Is that
That's
the same
petrol.
as...
I always confuse them.
Is that the same person who says a swan will break both your legs with one swoop of its wing?
Well, it might.
No,
They're
it
very
won't.
strong. And then you'll get arrested
Depends if
anyway
he's got
for
a cricket
interfering with the swan. Yeah, it's a street swan.
And it depends if the absinthe is poisoned. Yes, you might die after the second one. No, well, we have some absinthe. We could put it to the test if you want.
I don't know if I've ever actually tried absinthe. I have to
Well,
say.
maybe near the end of this episode.
Yeah,
we can have a
later,
sip of
later.
it.
Yes. Have you got plans this evening?
Well, yeah, we're singing a play.
We are singing a play. I don't want us to yell the whole way through or
Or sleep.
hallucinate.
Yeah, or hallucinate.
Or
That
sing
could be
along.
Very exciting.
It's not a musical.
You can make it one after a few absinthes.
Definitely shouldn't be singing along.
No, this is a really dark, serious play. I don't think we should be singing hits along with
I
it.
don't think it will go down well.
Well, with
that's
everything
80s
that we have
medley.
just babbled about, Nick, what have you come up with?
Well, as knowing that Ro was going to be here
Yes.
and not knowing exactly what we were going to cover,
Yes.
I thought I would make something Ro appropriate.
Yay.
And we know what Ro is the queen of wine.
Yes.
She is the
I
queen of
am.
wine.
The queen of wine, so the white wine. So we're going to have a white winey cocktail.
Oh, that sounds nice.
okay.
Lovely.
Yes. It's called Morning Dew, but
Oh, lovely.
it's mainly winey.
It doesn't have
Sounds
morning
charming.
dew in
It
it.
doesn't have morning dew. I
You've not
wasn't
been out
out.
gathering.
Wasn't out at 3.
Why not? I'm very special. This is very special, my presence here.
If you're out at 3, it would be dark. That's night.
No
That would be
morning
night dew.
Okay.
A whole different cocktail.
Anyway, it sounds delicious. That sounds lovely. White wine cocktail,
Wonderful.
morning dew.
So, yes.
Well, that sounds very exciting. I think it is high time for us to go and have a think in the Poisonous Cabinet kitchen and shake up a storm. So we'll see you in a minute.
Just see it a bit.
And we're back.
Hello.
Well, Nick,
No.
it's a red drink.
Just red.
And it smells delicious.
It's red. It's very clear. Oh, it's very beautiful, ruby almost esque, jewel-like.
It's very clear. It's all that morning dew that you
That's the thing.
out
is.
collecting.
I was out collecting it.
And it's got a nice aroma to it. Yeah, you're right. They've got a fruity twang, maybe.
Fruity
Is
twang.
it a fruity twang? All right. Well, Ro, you know the deal. That we all go Merry Christmas. We dive in, and then we've got to try and decide what's in this.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Okay.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Okay.
Oh, it's nice.
It's weird.
I quite like that.
I
It's
like it.
nice. It is. It's less bad than I thought it was.
You seem unconvinced. It's less
That's always
ringing
encouraging.
endorsement.
I like white wine, but white wine in cocktails can sometimes be pretty hit and miss. Can be a bit
It can.
acrid.
This is very true.
But this
isn't acrid.
This is weird. This is nice. It's weird nice.
Weird nice.
I like it, but I don't know.
It's sort of sharp but sweet.
All right. So what's in that? Is that? That's got something
Cranberry?
Nope.
Oh.
fruity.
Fruity.
It's not watermelon, is it?
It's not, no.
Oh, yeah, I can see why you said that,
Do you
though.
see what I mean? It's got a savoury quality to it. Why are you
Sort of
raising your eyebrows like that?
Raspberry?
Raspberry? Cassis?
Oh, that cassis is a good shout.
But he's not saying anything. we could say
Does that
things
mean
for
yes?
ages.
No?
No. None of that.
None of that.
Wow.
Right. A pomegranate?
Oh, good shout.
I
You're
know.
good, doing well with the fruits.
Ro can stay more often. Normally when I do this, it's Nick laughing at me. You're encouraging. Thanks.
They're all the wrong fruits, but you're naming a lot of fruits.
Shut up. Me and Ro are having a lovely time guessing fruits.
But they're lovely fruits, Nick.
Lovely fruits. You being here actually led me to guess more fruits than I normally can name.
Oh, well.
I normally have 4, and then I forget all the fruits.
It's because I'm bringing the sort of fruits of Seville. Well, not actually the fruits of Seville, because that would be orange.
Those would be oranges.
The sort
Is
of
it
sense
orange?
of Seville.
No.
No, shit.
Damn it.
Marmalade.
Marmalade. Yes, marmalade.
What is that then?
Some kind of sugar syrup must be in it.
Strawberry.
It is strawberry.
Oh, I was going to say
Strawberry.
strawberry. Oh,
Oh, damn. Okay, what else? How many more?
One more. Well, 2 more.
Wine.
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 One more. One more.
I guessed that. All right, so what's the other thing? Is it a liqueur?
It is.
Okay.
Oh, I don't really know liqueurs. I'm not really very good at this now.
Strawberry. It doesn't taste very winey.
When you say strawberry, are we meant to guess what form of strawberry?
It's a strawberry. It's a strawberry liqueur.
Okay, fine.
So yeah.
Strawberry liqueur.
What are you
I'm
going to
taking.
guess?
I don't know. I was just going to make something up.
It's a strawberry concern.
A whole strawberry.
Some kind of strawberry drink.
It's a wine strawberry liqueur.
It's a Yazoo strawberry milkshake. That's what it is.
Ooh, let's get
lovely.
those later. Oh,
That
a good
and white
idea.
wine would be a glorious mix.
Lovely.
Is the other thing fruity still?
No.
Is it Twiggy?
In a way,
Twiggy adjacent?
Twiggy. I would say Twiggy. I would say Twiggy adjacent.
Vermouth?
No.
Benedictine?
No.
Grenadine.
Nope.
Booze, but alcoholic?
It is alcoholic.
Okay. Oh. So not... Well, it's because it's so clear, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be a clear liqueur, I'm guessing.
Yes.
And but not fruit. But not fruit. Floral.
fruit.
Floral?
No, I wouldn't say. I'm not necessarily. No, I wouldn't say.
Doesn't
floral.
taste floral.
Herby?
I would say more herby.
More honey?
No, that's not a herb.
Rose. I'm just going to name herbs. Rosemary. Thyme.
No.
Parsley.
A
Sage.
multitude of herbs. But it's not twiggy, so it's not a chartreuse or anything, because
It's not
otherwise I'd be
chartreuse.
bleeding from the
No,
eye.
it's not chartreuse or anything like that.
Oh, shut up. No, it isn't. It's, I don't know. It's clear. It's lychee.
No.
The Yennever.
No.
The fucking
No.
Suze?
No.
Suze.
No.
It's
I don't even know what that is. What's Suze? We're just saying French words.
the bicyclette.
Oh, oui.
Sur la table.
Le couchon. I don't know.
Row.
I give up. I don't know.
Give up.
Give us a hint. Because Rose here, she needs a hint.
It comes on a bush.
A bushel. Apples.
No.
Junipers.
Bush.
They brought forth juniper berries. Sorry.
Is it gin of some kind? I was wondering about
Yeah,
this. Could
it
be
comes on a
gin.
bush. Blackberries.
Clear and
Elderberry.
No.
But that's all fruit. What's not fruity that comes on a bush? Rosemary.
Nope.
Fucking.
I said rosemary.
I know, and I thought he was lying.
Just
I
double
thought if I
checking.
said it again,
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
meant
Yeah, that Rosemary, right.
comes on a bush.
Oh, you're going to kick yourselves?
Yeah, I am.
It's
and
gonna be
I'm
really
gonna
obvious,
kick you.
isn't it? I'm going to kick you.
Bush.
That's better.
A bush, but not a fruit. Jesus Christ. Nuts.
It must be a
Nuts. Nutty?
No.
No, it
Oh.
doesn't taste nutty.
Well, I don't know. There's many nut bushes out there.
I'm not sure about that.
Nut bush city limits.
Well, yes, that's true.
Is it that?
No, surprisingly.
As a whole, is it just that?
Fuck.
You sure it's not a form of gin? Because I feel like it is.
Quite sure it's not a form of
I
gin.
think you're
Ro
wrong,
can
Nick.
convince you that it is. I mean, why won't you admit that it's a form of gin, Nick?
Absolutely.
Oh God, do we give up? I give up.
I give up.
Mint.
Oh, shut
Oh.
up! Shut up!
Oh,
That's
that
not
is
in
really
a bush.
obvious.
That's not a bush. It's a plant. Show me a mint bush.
Okay, well, I said herb, twig adjacent.
I liked twig adjacent. I enjoyed that.
Any other?
I know you said
apart
herb.
from saying mint. What other clues do you want? Let me give you a clue. It's a bit minty.
It doesn't actually taste very minty. I'm
It
surprised
doesn't.
by that.
It's weird. So was it like the crème de menthe?
Crème de menthe blanc.
Blanc. It got us
Very
crème de
nice.
menthe. Hey.
Actually, now that you say that, there is an after link.
There's
There
a
is a minty
minty
twang in there.
aftertaste.
Yeah.
But it's not
Yeah,
spearminty
there is.
toothpaste.
It's not toothpastey twang.
It's just got a nice freshness.
It's an interesting collection of flavours.
It
It
is.
actually tastes a lot nicer than it sounds.
Yeah, exactly. I would not.
I would say.
I looked at it and went, yeah. I'm not convinced that was going to go together, but it does. It works.
It's very nice.
It is very
Have you
nice.
come round to it? Because you didn't seem very keen to begin with.
It's a weird flavour at the start, but it was more than I was confused. I'm like, what's going on here? I like it, but I don't know what it is. So
I
that's
see.
that sort of
Now
feeling.
we've clarified exactly precisely what it is.
Yes, now
You
I
can
know.
enjoy it more.
Now I know.
Yes.
I know what I likes. Strawberry mint do go well together in a
And
nice
wine.
dish. And wine. Just pour
And
some
wine.
wine over it. It's an odd collection, but it does work.
Well,
I really like that.
I'm a fan.
excellent.
I approve.
I'm glad.
Thank you for creating it in my honour.
Your honour.
Yes.
Did you create it in her honour?
I will
I got it out of the book in Rose honour.
In Rose
I
honour.
googled it in Rose honour.
More things should be done in my honour, I think.
Well, with the morning dew firmly in hand, it's weird, but we're okay with it. I think we should have a bit of a chat.
Have a bit of a chat.
Normally we'd have a story, but we're going to delve into various topics. So, Ro,
Yes.
dear Ro, you're on the sofa this week. Do you have a theory on Jack the Ripper? Let's start.
Oh. Not really, I have to say, rather boringly. I always wonder if they actually did catch the person in the end. Like,
Oh, really?
Weirdly, yes. I wonder if it's a bit of a myth that we've collectively, enjoyed kind of fantasizing in. It's fascinating, isn't it, to say something's completely unsolved, and because you just don't know. People sort of copycat killing and all the rest of it. You really don't know. They could have caught him, and actually someone then continued it, afterwards, just to kind of participate in and be a part of something. No, I don't have any particular theories. I think our fascination with it is really interesting because
Yeah.
it's in a way, it's not that unusual. Like, there are many, many crimes like it, and we've got absolutely fixated upon him specifically. That
Or
one,
her, yes. But
her, but
yeah.
probably a him.
Probably a
given-
him. You think a him, yeah.
But I
think
think that's because it is unknown.
Yeah.
There are many
fascination.
other crimes like it, absolutely, but a lot of them are sort of solved and done,
Yes.
and there's not quite as many which are just unexplained.
We're always
No.
fascinated by the monster you can't see in the shadows.
True, but then I wonder. I don't know. You just don't know what boxes it ticks to keep the myth kind of going. It's a bit like the Loch Ness monster. I do wonder if there's something, because we do enjoy, as you say, something being unresolved, whether it's kind of taken on a life of its own.
Do you think there's the thing that plays into that about if it's unsolved, I could solve it?
Yeah, I think people like to believe that there's a sort of, grandiosity almost to I could work out who it was, or why did they get it wrong, kind of looking back and wondering why they couldn't figure it out. But I think you're right. I think we like a puzzle, don't we? And we like a sort of something that we can sort of wonder about, that pricks our curiosity, and then you can sort of make up as many answers as you want.
Yeah, there's always a theory, isn't there? I suppose with the Loch Ness Monster, there's the idea of like, I reckon this.
You can always write a new book about it.
You can.
Absolutely. Imagine the publishing rights.
Well,
how much money has been made.
Exactly. You can always make some money out of it, because you
Writing
can write a
about
crazy
Jack the
theory
Ripper.
and people will buy it.
And that's what we see with...
And TV adaptations. And
with Jack the Ripper, we see it. We saw it recently. We've seen it again. We have to respond, and people do across the true crime community respond to the latest thing about, well, here it is. They have evidence. They've solved it. And the amount of people who will, message when I've done anything on Jack the Ripper online, and they go, well, no, it's been proven. It's been proven. You go, well, it hasn't been proven. It's a theory. There's no way to prove it. People, want to insist that they've worked it out.
we like curiosity, but we also do like certainty. The other side of that coin is that we also like to know, and we like to think that we do know. So I think there is a drive towards...
But we like a conspiracy theory with it, that it's the secret that we know, that we've worked it out. I do think that there is an element
an elite
of that.
club.
Yes, I think that feeds into conspiracy theories a little bit more, but I think with true crime and certain stories that it feels like there is only the chosen few know, and the people who are smart enough to have worked it out.
Yes.
And what that is that you've got the same source material that everyone can probably access online, and you've put 2 and 2 together and made 5.
Uniquely,
but you've uniquely done
together.
this. Yeah.
Sherlock style.
Yeah. Interesting. Off the back of that, we've mentioned it before. I think it's a subject that never gets old, or a question never gets old, of why are we drawn to true crime? A fascination with, often really violent crime. People love a true crime documentary, a modern one. It's something that we don't delve into. We go to the past because we want to find funny stuff. But people love gory detail and love to know about violent crime. Why, Ro? Why?
I mean, it is incredibly popular, isn't it? It increasingly, it's unbelievable, really, the sort of zeitgeist boom in our obsession with true crime. I think that they're a bit like going back to the Jack the Ripper conversation, I suppose. I think there's always been a preoccupation with the darker parts of ourselves. It's like living out something that you in your ordinary everyday life will never, hopefully, get to engage with.
Yeah.
It's like a sort of, I think there is an extension of self, almost like a fantasy projection into these stories. It's not, not that you would literally want to go to those places or commit those acts of violence. It's sort of unbelievable, but then the fact is it happened. That's what we like, isn't it? Is that it almost feels cinematic. So there's a separation from the violence. Almost in its extremity, it becomes other. And then, we know that we love the fact it happened, don't we? That's the whole point. We love the fact that it really did happen. And how can people go to those places and do those things? It's inconceivable and unimaginable. But I guess the point of a lot of the forensic sort of pathology side is trying to understand how and that in a way it's not that incredible. These things actually come out of real events and real experiences and, trauma and all sorts of things. There are reasons why people get to those points in their lives that they would do something extraordinary. But I guess most of us won't ever, thankfully, encounter those events. So I think the fascination is about something that seems far removed and therefore it feels safe. But it's exciting and it's thrilling.
It's believable, but it's at a distance because someone has actually done this, rather than it being a work of fiction on the page, on screen. This actually happened.
Yeah, so you buy into it in a different way, I suppose, because you know that there is a reality to it, an actuality to it. But I think there is something about it. You're sitting there with a cup of tea on your settee, watching it on a Sunday evening. You're very cosy in your home, aren't you? Yeah. It's miles away from what your everyday reality is. But there's that frisson that it gives you, that kind of sensationalist thrill that it wakes you up. It stimulates parts of you, I suppose.
Nick, you're a fan of the crime procedural?
I mean, I do, exactly. Yes, dude. I mean, that's more fiction. So I don't like a true crime documentary, I have to say.
Do you not?
I'm not a fan of a true crime documentary or stuff like that. I find that a bit too, oh God, that's real sort of thing. Really? So I don't like that. But yeah, I mean, Criminal Minds, all that sort of shit, Bones. I love it. It's the most crazy way people do unpleasant things to each other, but I know that is purely fictional.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely, it's better knowing it isn't real.
Yeah, I can watch those all the time. But yeah, I don't watch a true crime documentary.
I don't watch a lot of them. I watch some of them, but I would find it hard to sort of settle in and go, what am I going to watch of an evening? A lovely murder documentary.
But again, a lot of them you get on TV now, things are about very modern things, which we don't cover, which we don't cover because I don't enjoy that sort of thing. No. But if there was a documentary on 17th century craziness or a Jack the Ripper, I probably would watch that.
Yeah, I guess
again because there's that
sort
distance
of thing, because there is that distance,
feels,
which is why this podcast does what it does, because there is that distance.
It's what we've always talked about is that history, yes, it may seem hypocritical, but we do feel a greater sense of distance that we can look back and go, well, we have the benefit, and it's looking at a 21st century lens at things in the past and go, ha 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 ha, you fools.
Yes, so you still need to understand the context, in which they were
which we do, and we understand, and every time we say something gross from history, we go, but it was society sort of decreed this is the way of things when it's about marriage and when it's about relationships and about propriety. We can look at that being so far removed for it, and maybe does give us an air of judgment to it. Funny judgment. When it boils down to it, the motivations behind the crimes are not distant at all from a lot of the modern ones.
The motivations are exactly the same.
No, they're the same. Human behaviour has not really changed in that sense.
And it's striking how many people, when they look at old crime cases and some of the cases that we cover, people say is that it's so mad, it's so true to life today. It's so crazy, and that it's so similar to stuff. It really rings true, and it's like, because the motivations of the self, of the people behind it.
Well, it's money or love, really, isn't it?
Those drives and the
needs. The greatest poisons of
those are things, and that whether that's 21st century or the 17th century, it's the same.
Yeah,
it's the same money, thing. Love, ego,
power.
Power, absolutely. Yeah, so all the same drivers behind that. That's never changed.
Yes.
I mean, what you're saying about why is true crime so popular? I mean, it is popular now, but it's also, it's never not been popular.
It's particularly popular, but yes.
Well, I think it's particularly popular now because obviously there's much more way of consuming it. You have TV
Netflix.
And you have podcasts and you have all this sort of stuff, whereas back in the day you had Penny Dreadfuls and that was your only source of news, and people devoured
and they devoured them,
well, like the police news.
The police news and all those sort of things, getting those gruesome, gory details. And people as soon as they heard there was a murder, Victorian Londoners would run to the crime scene to get a souvenir and take a look and things, because there was no live from the scene reporting at the time. No. So let's go and have a look.
And wait for the evening paper and for the periodical to come out. Yeah.
Well, also, I was just thinking the other side of that is hangings, isn't it? In that more gladiatorial way. Why would you want to watch someone being killed? But clearly it was an event. It was a proper event.
A lot of the stories that we cover, especially from back sort of like 16th, 17th century, you get a report like 10,000 people arrived to watch the hanging, and it was people brought their kids on a picnic, and they were entertainers, and you could buy some beers and have a pie and have a nice jolly family day out.
Which does seem sort of overtly macabre, and rightly so now, but same with gladiatorial arenas and things in Roman times. That's the same fascination, isn't it?
And that closeness to life and death, I suppose that's weird, because we don't have that now. We have it through the documentaries maybe, but don't have that. I always love the hangings, and we've mentioned it before, but Charles Dickens being there, sitting above everyone, writing that you're all awful for watching this. You went to a fair few hangings yourself.
You're still there.
And I know that you're being an investigative journalist. We get it, Charles. You totally watched all of that happening.
But you still went.
And you were shit to your wife. Yeah.
You still bought a flagon of wine and a souvenir program from the day, didn't you?
Yeah, he was on a roof of the building looking at everyone. He actually did that. He just sat up there going, "Oh, they're all awful. Glug, 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 glug. You're young.
I'm so separate from the masses."
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're a great author. Everyone's flicking V signs at Charles Dickens.
Well, I do think it's interesting, that part of us that it's almost like there but for the grace of God go I type idea, isn't it? That,
would you go to, it's a horrible, horrible thought. I mean, people follow, I know, the public executions around the world. Obviously don't have it in the UK, but people monitor it and people follow it and are fascinated by the whole process of it and being as close to death as you can be without having a personal connection to it. Yeah, it's quite chilling.
I think, did we talk about it last time I was here? But I suppose there's loads of different kind of aspects to it. But I was just thinking about, people who form relationships with people on death row. It's the same sort of closeness to death and sort of fragility and something, well, I don't know, there's something profoundly almost existential in why people would be drawn to
that's a whole
exploring
thing.
that
We should
relationship.
do a whole extra
We should do a separate episode.
I
Yeah,
do
it's
find that
interesting.
interesting. I think it's further away from the crime. I think that's more relationships and the danger element. And I, again, find it fascinating.
It's really interesting.
Of why would you? But you can also, there's parts of you that can see it, that can see the
Yeah,
danger.
there's
But that's
another episode.
Well,
an after dark.
people love a bad boy, don't they?
And we do love a bad boy. Maybe not one who's murdered people. I have just been recording about Rebecca, like the book, and we discussed it on book club and talking about a wonderful, but absolutely brilliant piece of Gothic literature and wonderful story. But in the middle of it, you go, you know what? Like, spoiler, people, but like, oh, Maxim de Winter's so romantic. He shot a woman. He shot her.
Less romantic.
Less romantic. Oh no, she was really mean to him. Still don't have to kill her. Still don't have to kill her. Oh, but Laurence Olivier played him. Oh, he's so hot.
Well, I mean, that would be a whole other series of episodes, wouldn't it, of why the violence is always enacted, often enacted against women.
Yes. Yeah, it's
over
very,
the years,
very,
which is a very
true.
difficult part of true crime podcasts as well.
And it's an important subject, and maybe one that, if people feel interested in it, we can dive into. But yeah, it's a difficult subject. But we're talking about hangings. That means,
Yup.
And I love it when, yes, and segueing from hangings easily, which is what we do on the show, is, well, hanging is a spectator sport. But Nick, you had some questions for Ro that you'd brought up before.
I see the
I'm seeing your segue there, I have to say.
spectator sports.
Spectator sport. But
Aspect.
you had questions.
Well, no, it's not so much questions. It's one of those things that's has come up on the show before, and it's just me going back to my A-level psychology. So I'm obviously most learned in these things.
Yeah, Ro, you could learn a thing or two.
You say, yeah. Did you bring your notebook, Ro?
I did. I've always got a notebook on me.
And that's the whole thing about bystander apathy.
Yes.
About people not taking responsibility for what's going on around. I remember this from when I studied, and that was
A few
20
years
ago.
Yeah.
I don't think
But 5 years ago.
But yes, only a few years ago. And I came to refresh my memory on things today, and it looks like things have changed in the past sort of 10 years or so. Yeah, the theories and stuff have changed, which I hadn't realised. I was like, ooh.
So give us some context of
right, okay,
what you're talking about. Because you're getting really excited. I can see you like, yeah. I don't know what you're talking about.
So back in the 60s, it was 1964, there was it became a famous murder in Queens in New York of a woman called Kitty Genovese. Anyway, so there was a murder by this woman called Kitty Genovese. She was I think she was a bartender. She was in her 20s, and she was returning home one evening, I think in the early morning, from work to an apartment block somewhere. She parked her car, walked through an alleyway to get to her home, and she was attacked. She was sexually assaulted, and she was stabbed to death. And in a place that was surrounded by apartments, hundreds of people, very, very close, she screamed out, she called out for help. She was actually, the chap who was eventually found and charged for the murder, he stabbed her a couple of times. Someone said, "What's going on down there?" He ran away. She sort of staggered around for a bit. Nothing happened. He came back about 20 minutes later to sort of finish her off, sort of thing. And in that time, according to the press at the time, no one had done anything. And the Times press reported that 38 people had witnessed this attack, and no one had done anything about it. I mean, the press went on that people were actually like watching out of the window while it happened. And it gave rise to this whole theory about why people don't get involved, why people don't do that. So yes, that's the sort of thing. I thought, Ro will know why.
Well, there's lots of thoughts. I mean, maybe we should start with what the thoughts have been, and then we can move into sort of some changing ideas around it. But I think there's a lot of different sort of interpretations. But fundamentally, I think a huge aspect is that actually people, when they've done various later studies, a lot, because it sounds so callous and so lacking in empathy, and on all sorts of levels it clearly is. What people found really later was that a lot of it is people's fear of not being good enough, essentially, not being capable, that we constantly imagine that somebody else will be better,
well, that's
will know
the
more,
thing. That's what I remember is that
be medically trained, will
Exactly.
Intervene
If there's a accident on the street or something like that, and there's a crowd of people, everyone thinks, "Oh, there's probably a nurse here, or a doctor, or someone who's going to be
Someone who knows more than I do.
be better equipped to deal with this than I am, so I won't say anything."
Yeah.
So if they get involved, what if they make? Is it that they're afraid of making a mistake, or they're just reliant on their law of averages? Is that there must be a doctor around?
I mean, I guess in the moment it's not even that rational. I think it really is a fundamental, I think a fear of getting it wrong. And I guess it's a huge amount of responsibility if you then feel like you're holding life and death in your hands and you aren't in any way first aid trained, etc., then, you sort of are, that's a lot to take on. But I think there is a genuine part of us which always managed, because they actually did a number of studies, but they basically discovered that you're much, much more likely to get help the fewer people that are around. So the more people, for example, like you were just saying, that surround an incident, you're less likely to get help because people do imagine that somebody else in that larger crowd will be much more capable. I guess it also limits the amount of responsibility taking, doesn't it? If there's only 3 people, then you've got to step in.
Wow, yeah.
In a way. But it's not what you'd think, is it? You think the more people that were surrounding, the more help you would get.
I'm sure fear plays a factor into it, of like, if I go out there and there's something violent happening, if I'm the only one,
sort of primitive
still
survival instinct. Yes.
Do I have backup? If I go out there and confront someone, am I in trouble? Am I going to do that?
Yes, which I think is also understandable for, in the sense of a murder or a violent attacker, then if you go out and involve yourself, you're obviously putting yourself at risk too. But equally, it's not what if you hear about a car being involved in an accident and suddenly bursting into flames, very often in those cases, when there's only one other person, say, driving along quite a remote road or something, people will stop that one person that passes, because there's no other options at all.
Yes, because if I don't do something, that person will die or something.
They will die, and then
then that is entirely on me if I don't do something, so you're much more likely. But I mean, it's interesting. I mean, the scenario describes sort of like, okay, something's happened on the street or something like that, and okay, people don't want to get involved and do CPR or something like that. But in the case of Kitty Genovese, it's not, people didn't even pick up the phone.
No, they didn't even know.
The sort of thing. So there's no inherent risk to person true. Or if I don't do this, I might make a mistake and kill them, or if I get CPR wrong, or
that's
something
true.
like that. Is just in the Times report, someone turned the radio up louder to sort of to cover up the screams sort of thing, rather than pick up a telephone. So it is. I mean, it goes to that level of,
I suppose that's
not
active
wanting
denial,
to get
isn't
involved.
it? Just not being so fearful, or just wanting to continue in your own evening. I think there is a selfish quality as well, in terms of in your individual world, whatever your working week has been, even though what you're talking about is something far more serious and important, people don't want to engage with it. Like, not only is it frightening and intrusive, but on one level you were just having an ordinary night, and suddenly this extraordinary, terrifying thing is happening outside, and you just don't want to start putting your fingers in your ears as a kid or closing your eyes.
It's like self-preservation, and having boundaries is a different way of saying it. In every walk of life, you just go, I need to protect my space right now. And I guess in that environment, you're just one person in an apartment, and you go, maybe you don't feel that you can do anything, and you just go, well, turn up the radio, someone else will deal with it, or just someone else will deal with it.
The assumption that someone else would have dealt with it.
You
I
step
shan't
back.
call, because someone else must have called already. So
someone else will have, everyone will be called. You sort of think that everybody will be, and then actually nobody does.
And it must be very stark reality to kind of think you're one person in an apartment, and then you pull, like the camera pulls back in a way, in a very cinematic way, but it's an entire apartment block who all have the same thought. As the law of averages is that, no, do something because other people won't.
Well, I think
call the police, obviously.
I think it's a ringing indictment of sort of individual personal responsibility and people's sort of disengagement from wanting to take that on, isn't it? It is,
and it's not a normal
really cool
thing to hear. You don't assume that it's normal to hear someone being assaulted or like to hear something violent outside. It's very alien.
But I think that adds another aspect to it, which is also because of that. It's a bit like when you hear a car alarm go off in the heat or a fire alarm. We don't tend to want to imagine the actual worst case scenario is really happening.
I mean, that's true.
So
I used to live near a car park. I hear a car alarm go off. You go,
it's probably just the heat.
You just go, oh God, rather than going, someone's breaking into a car.
Someone's actually stealing someone's car. Yes, exactly.
You just go, oh, for fuck's sake.
And you do tend to, it's true, in the summer, I think very often you tend to, it's probably just the heat. You don't actually sort of think, even in that scenario, that the worst possible possible thing could be happening, and that's just stealing a car, let alone something, far more serious and severe. I think we don't really. It's interesting that we've started with the idea of the fascination with the most extreme forms of violence and the most extreme aspects of ourselves, but equally, I think we have a kind of push and pull relationship with those aspects of humanity, and there's also a large part that quite often doesn't want to engage.
When it gets a bit too close. No.
Not at my door.
Yeah, exactly. Now
this
this is my neighbourhood now. This is on my street, so no.
It's a weird fantasy element of it, isn't it? That we indulge in things on the screen, on the page, that we can, and in your ears, with podcasts, that we can indulge in that and sort of feel very capable. That does not give you any kind of experience in what real life is at all, of being in an extreme environment or something that is even outside slightly of your comfort zone. People, I guess they react very differently.
Yeah, I was just thinking about when you sort of read stories with a protagonist and you always imagine yourself to be the hero. It's like the opposite of the bystander apathy
There's a really...
studies, isn't it? Like you imagine that you would be really proactive. We all want to believe that we would be,
Well, aside, but again, fascinating, there's been a sort of a tweet that's been going around about it. You watch films, you read stories, when you say that you just said you imagine yourself as a protagonist. There's someone who put the thing out going, are you imagining yourself as a protagonist, or are you like me sitting in the cuck chair looking? And it's a great way of describing it. And it started this whole debate of a load of people going, I don't imagine myself as a protagonist in these stories. I am literally looking at it as afar. I cannot imagine myself in that position. I am seeing it unfold. And other people going, I have to imagine myself in that. I have to put myself in the scenario. And so what we think is normal, in kind of when sort of going off and thinking about true crime, thinking about that, going, what would I do in that situation? Some people are not putting themselves there. They are observing it from afar. It's
Charles Dickens.
Like Charles Dickens. It's an interesting one. Yeah,
it is interesting.
Weigh in, people. Do you imagine yourself or don't you? Bystander, it's chilling. That is kind of handing over responsibility to everyone thinking about their own responsibility now, and what do you do in this day and age, particularly.
It's interesting because those were the theories. Certainly when I was at school, and it's in countless textbooks and things like that about this people not wanting to take responsibility. But then, say when I was reading up again on it today, it seems to have flipped quite a lot. Only in the past sort of few years or so. I think in 2006. There was an investigation into because pretty much that Times article sort of triggered the whole thing, and psychologists came up with all these theories and things like that have gone into textbooks that have been taught. I learned about it and things as did Ro when you were training. But it seems like in 2006 they did an investigation, and it turns out the Times had made up most of this, most of the facts and things like that. Some people had actually called the authorities. This was before 911 had been established. So various people have called sort of a couple different police departments and things like that, because there was no one central number. So you couldn't really report on how many people have called. The journalists went around and found out that,
they hadn't gone to all the police departments
to see who had called and stuff like that. They also found out that one person had called, but then they had said that they had, after the initial attack, and then had seen her sort of staggering around and reported
They thought
this.
she was drunk,
and the police said, she's probably just drunk, and she's walking around, it's not that bad, therefore it's not an emergency type thing. So therefore,
which is horrific.
So the call got pushed to the bottom of the of the pile, sort of thing. So
yes, it wasn't quite as simple.
So it's not quite as
disowning of responsibility.
It wasn't quite as sort of everyone ignored it as was originally reported, but then also that entire psychological theories were sort of based upon that reporting, which actually turns out not to be entirely accurate.
No, so the reporting wasn't, but it is also true that in terms of group dynamics and how groups function,
of course, it's not completely
people.
Without merit
Obviously, there's a lot of subsequent studies too that people do still.
Yes. But the extent to which it was,
but not as chronically
as chronic is not
true.
quite as.
But they're also
thank God.
Yes, indeed.
Well, thank God
so there are people out there who will.
Yes. But thank God to an extent it opens up another can of worms, which is probably bigger as well, and it's very relevant for today. Is that people called, the police did nothing.
Yes, well, that's
The fear
absolutely.
of, well, what difference can I make if the cards are stacked against you and someone's still going to go, oh, well, they're going to ignore it. Well, what's to be done? That's a whole other horror story
Yeah.
It's just another
of what's
nightmare.
the point? Every
Yes.
person for themselves because no one's going to help you, kind of, that's a very bleak interpretation of it. But yeah, certainly
I
people
suppose
feel...
certainly it ties into what impact can I actually have? Like, what impact individually can I have to help this situation? If you don't think the kind of systems and structures around to support are actually
Yes.
going to support, then that's a whole other
Yes,
question.
it makes you even less likely to
Yeah.
do anything if you think, well, what's the
And
point?
even
Yeah.
more
Yeah,
frightening
I
if
mean-
you're going to be left alone, literally, to sort of.
Quite chilling, yeah.
Hmm.
That is it's going back into the bleak territory of but it's still
that's not
I think
jolly
everyone
right.
feels it today.
It's realistic, but it's
It is, and many of our listeners are experiencing it at the moment. Fascinating about bystander. Is it bystander bias or is it bystander? What's it called?
Apathy.
Bystander
Apathy.
apathy.
You're, that's the same thought that you're
Chilling.
Yeah.
not
Well, I mean, I have to say,
going to react.
put my hands up. I mean, I have been guilty of it myself.
Who did you kill?
No, not that I've killed anyone, but no, when you,
Even if someone
I mean,
falls over or...
but no, I mean, even if I've been in
That's a heart attack.
the flat or something, and you hear someone drunk as anything, stumbling around the place,
Yeah.
and they, I don't know, they fall over or they're screaming and shouting and stuff like that. I'm lying in bed. I'm assuming they're drunk. I don't know. Perhaps they've just been stabbed. But I'm going, oh, for fuck's sake, I'm not
Yeah,
going
you
to
should
do it.
think
Yeah, if
more
it's
of an
if it's serious,
irritant
someone will
than
deal with it, sort of thing. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to do.
I mean, it is. It is very easy
if you're
to.
honest with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
think.
And just being, okay, yeah, people have done stupid things, and I've just gone, oh, sorry, someone else will deal with it.
But it's stepping out of your cosy world, isn't it? Like,
Well, absolutely.
The opposite of watching a true crime
But then
documentary on a Sunday night. It's
Well,
like, actually,
yeah,
oh my
so
God,
actually
the
dealing
monster's
with it.
coming in the door, and I don't know if I want to engage with the monster, actually. I'd rather
Yeah.
shut the door and put some headphones on. Like,
So I'm very much like that, but there are people in the world who are very much the opposite.
Yeah, there are.
I mean, we have our friend Miss Cass.
Absolutely.
I mean, I remember when we
Yeah.
shared a house,
Yeah.
and there were several occasions where there was a bit of an idiot next door neighbour
Yeah.
pissing around, and she would be the first one out there banging on the door, waiting to punch his head in because he's done something stupid.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm going, Cass, come back in. Cass, come.
Yeah, that's definitely
So,
true.
yeah, so there are people out
Different
there
personality
who are
types.
very proactive in
Yes.
these things, which is good
Yeah.
to know that there are people in the world who will be.
And in fairness, if you were the one in trouble, you know who you'd want the advice.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you a very weird instance, and it wasn't a crime, but it was just a bizarre thing that happened of being up in Oxford Street. It must have been in Oxford Street up in London. I was out, and this was a fair few years ago, I was out with my sister and other people, and we were walking along trying to get the night bus, and we looked over at I think it was Topshop, or other brands are available, but a huge store, and it was night, so the lights were on in the window to show up the mannequins, but they were off in the store. And to the front of the window appeared this old man. Someone who had obviously...
In the store?
In the store.
Oh, cool.
You can only assume had gone into the store, hidden up, was an elderly but capable person who came to the window, was obviously trapped in the shop because he'd been locked in, hidden in there, and started trying to just break the window so he could get out.
Oh,
And doing that. And we're standing across the road and look, and my sister, bless her, went straight across. And I'm like, don't. But she's like, no. And
I
then
can
she
imagine
goes
your
over
sister
and
doing
she's just sort of like saying to the window, are you okay? And I'm like, well, that's not going to help. But also went straight there.
Yeah.
And everyone's standing around, and the guy broke the window.
Wow.
Smashed open the window and then just walked off. Because he was stuck in there and he needed to get out, and he decided to do that. And everyone kind of went, okay. No one went up
Wow.
to him to see if he was all right once he was out.
Gosh.
Wow.
When he was behind the glass, fair play, everyone was like, are you okay? And then he was
Well, it was
off,
safe,
like,
isn't it, there?
safe.
Yeah, he's
He
not.
walked off down the road and everyone was
That's
like,
good
okay,
to
he's
you.
fine. He seems fine. He's walking
Yeah.
off. Okay. He clearly wasn't, but he was just up. But none of us went over. None of us went over. Do you need anything? Just this really weird thing. And that's not a crime, but it's just how strange it was in the middle of Oxford Street with lots of people around.
But do you remember why, for you? Obviously, it's not quite that conscious in the moment, but like, do you remember why? Do you remember a feeling of what? Like, were you afraid, or what was the feeling?
I didn't want my sister to go over because I didn't want her to get into trouble or to encounter something. I think there was just an instinct of, this doesn't involve me.
Well,
This doesn't
yeah,
involve
that's
me.
The other part
Yeah,
of it, I
it
guess,
was
isn't
just that, and he's walking and he's upright, so he's fine. And I do think about that of like, he didn't seem okay. Should we have called someone? Should we have done that?
Gosh, that's quite a dramatic experienced.
And he wasn't injured or anything like that, but it was a very strange thing to have seen and witnessed. They go, oh, well, that's a story you walk away with, rather than going, yeah, you do think back and going, someone should have done something. Someone should have called it. I think people were going, oh, poor Topshop. And you're like, no, poor man.
Poor man
who's walking off. But it's because it was a violent sort of action. And you were like, yeah.
Fallen asleep in a display somewhere. Or
that, or hidden in a toilet, or gone in there, or something had happened. Something had happened, and it was
spent
very
a really
weird.
long time choosing between outfits.
Exactly.
Yes.
I really love
Lots of
this tiny
changing
tank top. Yeah.
Really indecisive.
Yeah. Bizarre.
Wow.
did you have the shopping when you came out? Did you have a few bags?
At least.
He did have a few, but he didn't
One was
take
there.
anything. I'd be like, take the shoes, take the shoes. I'm like, get the stuff. Don't get involved, but get the stuff. You may as well. Like that. No, I didn't. Of course I didn't. Wonderful. Oh, such topics that we're on. Well, from bystander apathy to werewolves.
That's what I was going to say.
I mean, seamless.
Seamlessly. By night things change. By night the animals come out. It was a topic I've wanted to discuss with you for ages, is the idea of lycanthropy. Lycanthropy. We've told a fair few stories on this show. We have various famous cases like Peter Nears in the past, a lot of medieval stories. But then some into 15th and 16th, later centuries, famously Manuel Blanco Romasanto, who was a bizarre man, but people who use the lycanthropy defense and truly believe that something has happened to them. So Manuel Romansanto is an episode that we've done. For people who don't remember, he was known as the Tallow Man. He was a man who became a guide through the mountains of Spain. He had had a bit of a bizarre past and strange background, but was apparently killing people on their travels, mainly women and young children, would kill them and then make soap out of their fat, which is horrible enough, and was selling the soap. But then when he was caught, he told this story that he had turned into a wolf, that he'd been bitten by a wolf, that he'd turned into a wolf. And this became such a famous case that the King of Spain, I think, and in England as well, people got involved to say, no, we must study him. We must understand about lycanthropy. People have claimed lycanthropy across the centuries. So why, Ro?
Yes, why have they done that?
Fundamentally, why?
I don't know a better way of describing. Why do people think they're wolves?
Yes, you don't get many people thinking they're fish.
No.
Yes.
Why wolves?
Yes,
I mean, I think I can answer.
I'm an elephant.
Explore that.
Wolves bitey. Wolves bitey.
But there are other bitey things.
Well, you do. So
I'm a crocodile.
It's frequently wolves, and we can have a think in a second about why that might be.
Okay.
But you do sometimes get, so there's sort of clinical lycanthropy, which is actually a diagnosable disorder, which is a psychotic disorder, and it basically comes out of the roots of schizophrenia and sometimes bipolar disorder and things. But it probably would form in modern, like nowadays, part of someone's defence if they were in court in that way, but also actually does affect people who are experiencing psychosis or sort of psychotic delusions, and they really do believe the whole perception in the body changes. So they really do believe that they're sort of growing claws, or that they've got fur on the body, like the actual sort of perception of how you physically feel in your body changes. So people can talk with real sort of lucidity and clarity around their experiences of transformation in a way that can sound sort of quite convincing to a degree, because obviously in that sense of, if you're living through a hallucination, people really do believe it with great conviction. But sometimes the sort of manifestations can be tigers. Sometimes they can be snakes.
Yes, I've heard of that a lot.
There are other forms of
fair enough.
predator.
Good to know.
I suppose that often people can believe, but it is often wolves, dogs and wolves, and I think a lot of that comes down to, I suppose, the fundamental sort of history we have around werewolves and what those stories have represented throughout centuries really of society, those stories being passed on. I think there's something really, there's such a link between man and dog in that sense, and I think that there's something very primal about the identification with that the sort of sense of change and what change can mean for people, a wish to kind of embody something that's there's a real freedom and a liberation, isn't there, to those sort of more carnal base instincts, more violent instincts obviously, but I think the reason why it often becomes sort of focused in the form of a wolf is because of those stories. I think there's a cultural link between what people have sort of internalized and taken in, and when your mind is then more disturbed, what you then, the distorted beliefs that then can sort of form.
So sort of them being influenced by the folklore or kind of tales of...
I think so, influenced, but it's almost more sort of in you in a way. I think and I think there's something about the if you go right back to the roots of those stories, where they came from in the first place. Why did we ever, sort of in the mythological sense, why did we ever believe or conjure the idea of someone transforming into a dog or a wolf originally? Why wasn't it originally a tiger or a bear?
Well, there were it was in certain cultures.
It was, yes, exactly. In different cultures, they were represented differently. In Europe, it's mainly European folklore.
Yes,
that it was wolves, which makes sense because that's what we had around us, which is fundamentally where it came from, because you could only sort of create what you could see and then imagine from, building on that, as it were. So it makes sense for Europe that it was all kind of connected to the idea of a wolf. But I think there's something very powerful. I think there's something very exciting about what the sort of the power of that form, what it can enable what you to do, the way the wolves move. I think even that, like the way they sort of connect with the environment around them. There's something really primal about what sort of excites people about that.
I was going to ask you about that primal element and the pack element of it, but what you said earlier about change is really interesting. So the idea of being able to change, that it's transforming you from one state to another,
like altered states.
Is that what you think that's an element of it, that there's an appeal to completely transform, is in that you're no longer yourself?
Yes. So on one level, I think there's a disowning, which is what you obviously hear in that clinical defence, with the idea of, if you use clinical lycanthropy as a defence, then you're saying it wasn't me. I didn't do those things. It was when so there's a sort of separation between self and other, as it were, as if you can put all the violence into something other than yourself. Yeah. So it's not you committing those crimes.
I do not recognise that person, that kind of thing.
Which now, in more formal terms, you'd say was sort of diminished responsibility with something like schizophrenia. But it's a different way of expressing it, I suppose.
I suppose you can imagine, like, in these days, like, if you had in a scenario where it's like, it's diminished responsibility, okay, like, you didn't know, you went into a fugue state and everything, and they were like, okay. No, I was a wolf. You've gone too far. You've gone a bit too far. No, fugue state we can deal with.
Not very many.
No, I'm a wolf.
Instances.
No, honestly, please don't go with the wolf. Like, tiger, that's worse.
You weren't even born in Italy.
I mean, that's what people's defence was. I think that's why they were so fascinated. Like, we need to study this. This man thinks he's a dog.
I mean, it is fascinating, isn't it? And to actually really believe, because people have hallucinations. They hear voices. They hear voices, including things sort of like imagining they're part of a pack, and that the pack is sort of calling to them.
Yes.
Which obviously fits with the sort of delusion.
And it's very easy to discount it as in kind of, anyone can say anything, but that is discounting that people genuinely have.
But people, it's very few cases. It is rare. Like, when people really are experiencing the disorder and experiencing psychosis in that way. But it does happen, and I think people do actually. At points you have people sort of reenacting the transformations.
I don't know if this is a weird question. You may not want to answer it because I don't know how dark it was.
Are you a wolf, right?
Are you a wolf?
I
Would you like to howl together tonight? Well, for you, how can you tell? Like, as in, it may seem like a stupid question or an obvious question, is to go, for someone who is claiming this. I mean, I suppose if someone's sitting there going, I'm a wolf, you'd be like, well, prove it,
I mean, I guess on an obvious level, that's where the kind of proper psychiatric evaluation comes in. Because that is what people, especially in a criminal context, that is specifically what people are trying to, very seriously work out is, are you? Because people obviously do lie and falsify in order to get away with crimes. And so I think it's a very difficult line, really. People can be very convincing. I don't think there's an easy answer, is really what I would say to.
Is there a question?
How would you tell? It would be a whole series.
There's no definitive test.
Yes.
You can do. Say yes to this, then
investigations.
Well, I suppose it's a bit
sessions.
of, again, without it going too dark, as in, there would be probably questions that you would ask someone that, us as lay people would kind of go, are you a wolf? Or something like that. But something that you would ask anyone to kind of really get an understanding of it that might throw them.
I think it's different because, I mean, obviously with things like
it's case by
psychopathy,
case.
there are actual like screenings and evaluations that really do. And various personality disorders, there really are sort of clinical traits, and you're looking at different aspects of the mind and people's presentation. But with something like this, it's more that it would be a psychotic delusion and they would have a more overarching diagnosis, something like schizophrenia or possibly bipolar sometimes. But it's less how would you determine that they thought that they were a wolf, because it could be quite a temporary psychotic episode.
Yes, yeah.
In fact, it would be very likely to be. It's more that you'd be looking for a broader diagnosis like schizophrenia.
Yeah,
with someone.
There's no one question.
There's no one question that would
that sounds a bit too
clarify.
easy for that one.
I didn't think that there was, but I can imagine you sort of, if someone had an act there, and you would just ask them one really kind of really
penetrating
weird
question,
or sort of left field. Yes, you're very good at that. That you would ask, how does that make you feel? And you'd be like, how do you feel? I don't know. Just, probably picking out how their emotions about it.
like
I think,
sort of a wolf monitor.
The wolf monitor's gone off. That has 3 howls. There you go. It is incredible. It's, you know, werewolf stories endure and people are fascinated by them. There's obviously, should nod to, you've said about tigers, but, you know, the brilliant film, there were 2 remakes of The Cat People. Yes. Fantastic film about panthers, about transforming into panthers, and it was from a female perspective as well. It was a really interesting film, ahead of its time. But yes, this transformation, and often with women as well, it's this manifestation of everything that's primal and sexual and other and things. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Also,
on screen,
in folklore, there's a lot of representations of women turning into seals. Actually,
Selkie wife. Yes,
Selkie wife,
yeah,
yes, which
yeah.
is
I just read a
quite
very good
beautiful
book with that in that as well.
symbolism.
Oh no, I've given it away.
And that absolutely for a woman tends to be about freedom and exploration and, you know, kind of breaking out of the constrictions of what society's kind of placed you in or expecting you to be, and then
We all want to be seals.
We all want to be seals.
We all want to lie on a rock,
I mean, it's a good
sunbathe,
life.
and just flap our fins on our belly. And
You
just
wait till we
go,
get to Gran Canaria.
Oh, that is going to be me. I'm a seal. It's a whole level
In your
of
flowing
different
garments.
kind of psychosis you're dealing with. Sinead thinks she's a seal and she's killed a pig.
But she's quite happy.
I'm happy. I'm basking. Basking
Basking in the sun.
Nick, do you have anything to add to the lycanthropy conversation of werewolves or wolves?
No, I'm just fascinating listening. It's one of those things that you think, oh, my friends are quite clever.
Thank you very much.
Like, oh, you know what you're talking about. We just talk bollocks. You know something.
Oh, that's nice. That's why I've got my special cocktail.
Well, with that bombshell of wolves roaming the land and special cocktails, I think it's time for a drink.
Okay.
Hey. Well, we have our drinks.
We do.
And more chat. More chat.
More chat.
So,
What's next?
Topic, little small segue. Now, we won't dwell on this too long, but I went, werewolves, do you know what they love? Eating people. They do.
Loving your
do.
segues.
Historically, they do.
They do.
Apparently so.
Famously, they do. And it sort of drew us on to, well, drew us, me, onto the subject of cannibalism. So I spoke to you about this briefly, and I said, you know, we talked about the cannibalism. There are some horrific true crime stories, some of which we've covered, not all of them. And we did one very recently on Patreon. But yes, cannibalism, which is not someone going, I'm a wolf, that's why I'm eating someone. Someone going, I would like to have a nibble of someone in the nicest possible way.
Make it sound
I'm
almost
sure
quite-
that's exactly what's going through their mind. Oh, I fancy a
is.
nibble of someone.
Quite cute and inclusive and kind.
Yes, well, I mean, on Patreon, a recent episode, someone just carried some fingers around for a snack. For a snack. They did that. It's. I wanted to ask you about it, and this is a sort of segue into my other work as well, but it's getting a big resurgence in horror books at the moment, that we're getting a lot of horror books, female-led, involving cannibalism. It seems to be a new trend, and it's very popular. Not always well executed, in my opinion, but there are some big books at the moment where they're dealing with this idea of consumption, and like cannibalism is the new taboo, is the new kind of horror trope that people want to explore, and with women in it as well. But obviously there's true crime stories that are horrifying. There are miles away from these slightly fluffy, cool version of cannibalism. The reality of someone who declares that they are a cannibal And yeah, it's a big question, but sort of the psychology behind that of just what is it? Why do people eat people?
It's almost the worst. It's the worst possible
thing
you can imagine. It's the ultimate taboo, the ultimate line that you're crossing, isn't it? To digest another human being. I mean, I think there are a few different answers to that, really. I think so. There's sort of pathological cannibalism, which we'll maybe come to last, because that's the kind of key bit probably we want to talk about in relation to why it's become popular in horror films and things like that, and criminal cases as well. I think there's, just sort of broadly speaking, there's a sort of history of cannibalism where at some points over sort of the centuries in various parts of the world, it was also seen as a sign of respect, strangely, that you would sort of imbibe the qualities of, the person that you'd killed for land or whatever it was that sort of people might have been.
Yes, you would get their strength or wisdom or something like that.
They imbibe their sort of spirit, which is a different take on it.
But very different, separate,
But fundamentally, there's sort of, we were joking about it a bit earlier, but there's sort of survival cannibalism, isn't there? When you sort of
what's that called?
See, it's called nutritional cannibalism, which is...
It makes it sound far nicer than it is.
I'm just imagining a person with a nutrition panel on them. How much fat and sodium do they have? Oh, this is nutritional person.
Oh, that's no good. I want someone else.
No, too fatty.
That won't keep me going for long.
That won't keep me going. I know, we joke. But yeah, survival.
But if your plane crashed and you were, in the mountains,
custom of the sea,
yes, exactly, it has happened, or on an island, etc. Then I suppose it's the worst possible end extreme, isn't it? That people are driven to have to survive.
To survive, yeah.
So that's one sort of aspect of it.
And I will say that when my mum was in hospital pregnant with me, she was reading the book Alive.
Ooh.
The one about the crash in the Andes, where they did all eat each other. And I was like, why the fuck did you read that? She's like, I don't know, I just wanted to read this good book. It's like, it's really gross and grim. It's like, you're supposed to stay calm, Mum. Like, no,
calm and, yes.
And read that, and I was born.
I mean, there's a whole
world
of analysis.
That's another episode, I feel.
That's several episodes.
I don't know if she was reading it to the bump, and they ate each other. Weird kid, yes.
And look how you turned out.
Look how I turned out.
It's extraordinary.
I just remember her telling me that. I'm like, that's a weird thing.
But I suppose there we go. It has happened. Like, that is proof that people have had to resort to that ultimate extreme. As a brief segue before we go on to the sort of more pathological aspects, but I wonder about, it's a bit like, when they say if people have gone to the moon that it completely changes people, that people have to have a lot of therapy after they come back.
Yes.
And I wonder, really, if people have actually had to eat parts of another person to survive, what that would do to your psyche, to your understanding of yourself and your perception of what it means to be alive, and, sort of, if we were like to think of ourselves fundamentally as good, empathic people, but to know that you had done that, and that you were capable of doing that, that's going
to screw you up.
Yeah. That's quite a place to go to in your mind,
absolutely.
isn't it?
I think thinking about that, like with the, I think in the Andes or some of the famous stories where it is just, okay, these people are already dead and we're going to have to consume it, that's bad enough. But we've talked about with the Custom of the Sea where it is...
we're going to kill the weakest person so the rest of us can survive.
You draw straws.
That's a different matter, because you're actually not just taking advantage of not taking advantage, but making use of resource that you have, as it were. This is actually, we're going to...
It's like Lord of the Flies.
Yes, exactly.
And then
bullying,
in those cases, if you were, shipwrecked and you were in the lifeboat, and then there was just drawing the lots, and then everyone was, it was a whole debate later that the Customs Sea, what happened at sea stayed at sea. No one was ever prosecuted. If something happened, you took it as these were desperate measures. But then the question comes in of, were you absolutely desperate? Did someone agree, or did you all decide? And then there was the case that they decided, no, we're going to try these people for murder because someone died and they had to consume them. But then you have that moral line of like, but when is murder ever okay?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Do you think I know it's virtually impossible, we're nowhere near that scenario, thankfully, and it's very difficult to imagine how you would react if you were in it. But theoretically, both of you, do you imagine that you could cross that line if you had to?
I think potentially, says me sitting like 4 foot from my fridge, which is stuffed full of tasty things,
Whilst drinking wine.
It's like, so,
If the next words out of your mouth are going to be, I'd kill anyone in this room, I'd be worried.
Yeah. No, I think potentially if you had to, and if someone was already dead,
That is different
sort
as
of
well.
thing.
Yes.
So that, I think that
Rather than killing
scenario,
to eat.
I think actually killing someone to eat,
Yes,
that I
that's
think
another layer of-
is another layer, and
I agree.
I would like to think I couldn't do that.
So if they died of natural causes.
But if it was a crash or something and they had perished in the crash or something like
is
that,
different.
then roast them up.
Then get me a fire.
They're not dead, but Nick is standing there with a stick of butter.
Just waiting for them to
With a
reach
turkey
their
baster.
demise.
Everything else burned, but he kept that. You're like, it's fine. It's a curious one. As in, if they're already dead, then you can. I think in desperate measures you could rationalize anything, and I think your normal day to day would probably go out the window. I think you're probably in a situation of trauma if you've seen, depending if you know the people. We're assuming, are they strangers? If it was all of us, you deal with the loss of someone or the loss of someone who's close to you, and also all of that, you're going to be in a mental state that is not normal. I think it's, I can see it. I can see people going, okay, rationally, this is how you live, or do you take the stance of, well, we all die?
Well,
It's a
see, I
very
think I
noble
would take
one.
that stance, but not because I want to sound really noble, but because,
But
especially as a vegetarian,
You'd hope you would.
like, I couldn't even eat a guinea pig when I was in Peru. I just can't imagine. I honestly can't imagine crossing that line.
There was other food. Though, surely.
I mean, there was other food, not just guinea pigs. Happily. But yeah. But fundamentally, the idea. I don't know. I guess if you were really in that scenario, you don't really know what you'd do. But I can't imagine. I sort of imagine I'd rather just wither away.
Well, I think I'd like to think that, but a slow death suddenly puts you into a very different scenario.
Death of starvation or something.
Yeah.
It's not a fun way to
Like
go.
they say,
True too.
like dying of thirst is like the worst hangover you've ever experienced. You're like, But the weirdest thing that I feel is the reason I can't watch the film version of Life of Pi. It is a trigger for many people. If I imagine that scenario and I'm saying a person died and you'd have to sustain themselves, it'd be one thing. If an animal, weirdly, I am a meat eater. If a pet died in front of me, I would find that much more difficult. And it's completely hypocritical. It's really weird. But I would find it so much harder with an innocent kind of having to look them in the eye or just something. Rather than you can rationalise it with a human being, you probably assume that you could have a conversation with all of us, people who say, oh, well, I'd be able to eat a human being, because you'd assume you'd be able to go, it's what they would have wanted, because they were cognitive.
That's a very extreme version of that statement.
That's what they always wanted in life.
They always said.
That's how they always thought of going out.
It's a thing. It's a line that's used in some fiction about that. We talked about this. If I die, eat my corpse. If we're out, like, if I die first, eat me. And they're like, it's what they wanted. They wanted me. They'd want me to survive. You could rationalise that your friends are having it. They wouldn't want you to starve to death. Weirdly with an animal, it's like they had no say, or a pet.
No. That's
If it was
true.
one of my cats, I'd be like, no, I'll kill you first. They can nibble on my corpse. It's a really weird thing.
Well, I guess it's just what you love, isn't it?
Yeah, none of you.
No, friends, clearly. Cats, yes. Friends, no.
Cats, no. And I'm like, well, that's just what happens to us today.
In Peru, I didn't even know the guinea pigs. I just just couldn't do it.
I'd have been on my third guinea pig. Like, I didn't even know these were guinea pigs. Sorry. I thought this was fruit. We're not even serving them. Why are you eating them?
Sinead, put the guinea pig down.
Yeah, where did you get that from? Why is the pet shop alarm going off?
What?
Can't take you anywhere.
It's the custom. It's tradition.
Be like the man in Topshop.
Yeah, that's that breaking in to get guinea pigs. No, I wouldn't. No.
Anyway, back to cannibalism.
Back to cannibalism. But yes, so we've discussed this, the nutritional value.
Cannibalism.
Nutritional, but the pathological, is it?
Yes. And pathological.
The choosing to when you don't need to. Going
Yes.
for the crisps when you've already had a dinner.
So, and I was just thinking the most obvious sort of cinematic representation is sort of Hannibal Lecter and things, I guess, isn't it? But there's a lot, which, fantastic film. I guess fundamentally there's a lot about power and control and like possession of another person. So it sort of links back to that ritualistic idea of imbibing the qualities of someone, but in a different, more disturbed and distorted way, where you're sort of ultimately taking over another person, taking over another, and that is a disturbing and very dark part of it. But I think there is a lot in the idea of sort of ownership and control in all sorts of different ways. I suppose there's a lot of different facets to that, but you can't get much, if you think of a power dynamic, you can't get much more powerful than consuming someone.
I think that's something that's often missing in cannibal horror stories that I've read, that I see today, that it is, they certainly take it as that kind of taboo, but I always feel disappointed because it seems to miss the depth of the psychological,
the psychology of it,
of just that it is a taboo. It's a horrible thing to eat someone, and as in like it's always about a manifestation of
but
hunger.
Not just gratuitous. Yes,
it's but hunger seems such
but it's so much more perverse than that.
Yes, much worse than that.
There's a lot of things you could do that weren't eating another human.
Yes, and it's sort of for shock value, but never really going deeper than that, because the depth of that is desperately disturbing. I think
it's
upsetting.
Just so depraved, isn't it? We don't
so
really. Again, we're sort of fascinated with it, but sort of over here, and it's actually really, really frightening. Well, incredibly frightening. Like the idea, I think, also of, because I suppose in terms of the depravity part, it links to sadism. There's quite a sexual element to cannibalism, I think.
Yes.
In lots of ways, like in obviously a sort of sensory way, but I think into the perversion of it. Clinically, the sort of perversion of it is, there is a very sexually deviant aspect to it, which is again about sort of ownership and control in a way, really. And but I think that's a part that probably is difficult to look at, and most horror films would prefer to keep to the sensationalist part than exploring something that's so disturbing to look at.
And there's only a few cases that we've covered about cannibalism, and because they are grim and talking about it, and it isn't sort of about hunger, apart from when we've talked about like The Custom of the Sea. It's not about sort of a hunger and a fun side of things. It's just desperately, desperately dark. And there's all sorts of layers. And we don't cover a lot of the stories because behind it, when you look into it, you go, oh, no, this person's life and things around it were horrifying. Were absolutely horrifying. Doesn't mean it's not a valid story. It's just not suitable for our show if we're trying to find light in things. There's not a lot of light in cannibalism.
Not funnily
it's not
enough,
the jolliest
in
of
terms
things.
of light and
Funnily
shade.
enough, no, it's just. But as you said, all of those things, and I think I lament a little bit with, I think, crime and true crime and all elements of the darkest side of things. People can find an entertaining way of presenting stuff. But cannibalism, I do lament that it's sort of become a chic and it's not being delved into and is presenting as something as taboo. It's like,
interesting. I didn't know what you said about when you say sort of with female protagonists, do you mean it's a female cannibal?
Yes, there's a couple of examples of that. They're putting women. Yes, there's a lot of that sort of dynamic, as in kind of female rage being personified in consumption. That they have a hunger and need, and sometimes that goes to vampirism, which is a different sort of thing. But then it's sort of being warped into cannibalism, trying to take that same kind of idea of sort of sustenance of life, but actually fully consuming people. And it's sometimes done. There's a few books out that I won't mention, like a fairy tale element of it, drawing of like the old witch in the wood and Hansel and Gretel wanting to eat the children, that kind of side. But putting that into a full story, you're like, well, there's a lot more to it than just a weird person who wants to eat people, Well,
but that's interesting that you mentioned Hansel and Gretel, because I think, obviously we know that fairy tales were a lot darker than the Disneyfied versions that we know, but equally, I still think that a lot of people think of Hansel and Gretel as quite a sort of,
charming little
chirpy
two
little
children up a hill sort of thing.
Absolutely.
It is actually cannibalism. The figure of the witch, let alone parental abandonment and
exactly. It's a very dark tale.
All the other things it involves, but
the gingerbread
it is actually
house,
It is actually
Yeah.
cannibalism.
It is, and
we
it's
think it's a
the image of
children's
the
fairy
crone
story.
as well as the crone as the
Yes.
old lady
Very
who cannot,
misogynistic.
again, this image of welcoming children and has to consume them.
Can't
fully.
fit into society, must, yes.
Yes.
But that, I guess, would also fit into that trope of, the sort of idea of taking in their goodness, in terms of the children, the old crones, such as they were represented, in terms of terribly misogynistic ways they were represented, but they sort of lack fundamental aspects of humanity, don't they? If you take
Yes.
in children, then you're taking
that
in
fairy
pureness,
tale.
purity, goodness,
Exactly, yes.
all of those
sustenance.
sort of aspects.
It's a grim side of things, but it's fascinating.
It is. It's very
Yes.
interesting.
You was talking, it's just made me think of the flip side of that, cases we have covered before, where perhaps the murderer wasn't themselves a cannibal, but fed his victims to others.
Yes.
So we've had a few people. We had like Carl Danker, who made his deliciously pickled pork, as he labelled his cans of people meat.
Sausages.
People like Urban Stanger, who
Yes.
was a butcher, who ended up in
Sweeney Todd.
various pies and things. So it's killers who actually don't consume the victims themselves.
Yes.
Farm it out to everyone else.
Yeah, I'm sure Carl Danker had a nibble, but
Oh,
I
maybe
think-
he may
but
well have had a
he-
nibble and
he
go, "Oh,
made
this
it-
is nice," but here you go.
Yeah, he made a business out of it. Yeah.
But also, that has to be about, coming back to the idea of power again, it's always about power and control. Like the idea of
Imagine
feeding
knowing
people
that
something
you're
that
handing
they-
over
yeah,
to your neighbours or
that
something.
you are sort of, unwittingly forcing someone else to consume
Yeah.
something so horrific that they would never, willingly want to do. Absolutely, it comes down to a sort of depraved sense of pleasure in power. It's very sadistic.
With that thought, as we're heading towards the end. See,
Sandwich,
I
anyone?
wrap
Sandwich?
I wrap everything up. Make us a few
With
sandwiches,
that
there, Nick.
cannibalistic thought.
With that cannibalistic thought, a few snacks, Nick. But as we're drawing to the close, again, that idea of power, I suppose we'd spoken to you about narcissism.
Yes.
About the narcissist. We deal in true crime. There are many, many, many narcissists in our stories of these criminals who think they can get away with murder, they can get away with horrible fraud, with poisoning people, with wielding this kind of power in their own heads. Narcissism is a word that people throw about very easily now. Everyday narcissism, as we described it. People understand narcissism to a point, but now there's a difference between someone who has killed people repeatedly and your boss who didn't let you go home early for the day. People go, he's a narcissist, they're a narcissist. So I guess it's asking your opinion about the varying degrees of narcissism and what do you think people are getting wrong when they are throwing the word of narcissist around, how easily it can be wielded and what nuance needs to be considered.
It's a good question. I think because
Thank you.
it's interesting. It is a good question. I think it's interesting how everyday sort of the term has become. Maybe we can think a bit more about why that is. But I think, so in terms of actual core clinical narcissism as a sort of pathology, it's very much about a sort of actually very fragile ego. It's the opposite of what you might think, in a way, that someone's got a very damaged, fragile ego. Often they would have grown up with a very narcissistic parent, and then you learn not to trust others very early, so you sort of only rely on yourself. So there's a classic image of like the narcissist myth of a man staring at himself in a lake or a pool or a mirror in everyday sort of terms. Very self-regarding, sort of there's a vanity in there and certainly a sort of a grandiosity, so that your ego in many ways is sort of expanded almost, and you have a very strong, it seems from the outside, sense of self, but actually it's really about a very, very fragile personality structure and sense of self that is incredibly easily wounded. So there's this very key idea called the narcissistic wound, which basically means that any slight, any kind of perceived injury to the self is so they're just not able to tolerate it. So that could be something major like a relationship breakup, or but it's much subtler than that, really. It's more sort of perceived criticism, or which could be really, really very minor in lots of different ways, but you just can't manage it. So in terms of a narcissistic wound, when people act out and it gets as far as murder, and you're talking about narcissism in that context, it tends to be much more related to it. It's sort of, you're so wounded, it's unbearable. It's absolutely unbearable, like intolerable, and then it takes you to a place of blind sort of narcissistic rage, and that's where the ability to commit acts of atrocity comes in, because it's really not rational, but it is absolutely about, I can't bear feeling small, I can't bear feeling inadequate, I can't bear vulnerability on any level, and if I'm made to experience those kinds of feelings, I will lash out and act out, and that's where the sort of rage comes from. It really is.
So less about that person being, I'm sure there's an element of it, but less about them feeling that they're right and absolutely powerful. It's that they're actually deep down wounded.
It is that, but that's a way of coping and a real defence sort of structure. So if it is that, but if things then slip out of your control, and you are in whatever way, demonstrated, could be in a work meeting, it could be anything, couldn't it? That you aren't right, and you don't have that level of control over others and what they think and do, then you can't sort of tolerate that idea, and you have to fundamentally believe in a very omnipotent way that you are in control. So I guess it links to the idea of the lack of empathy and people, in terms of what really, that sort of core idea of narcissism means. The idea that people are also sort of experienced by you as objects, so they're not really seen as human, as individuals with their own needs, desires and drives and difficulties. They're basically sort of seen as objects and instruments that you can use and manipulate to get, what is that? Hence Epstein.
Yeah.
Get what you need out of people. So you're always trying to get your needs met, I guess. That's how people often view the world, as a sort of key stance. And then when you can't, or you come up against an obstacle, it's almost like that you just can't manage that.
And that with a narcissist, that will be part of their sort of their personality more permanently, as opposed to someone who loses control or flies into a fit of rage, as we've seen in some cases where there is a lapse in judgment in a moment or something, and they do something awful and terrible and reprehensible, but rather than them doing that because it's part of their sort of character makeup.
Well, I think it probably needs a bit more distinction. In terms of, you said something earlier I thought was a good way of trying to put the extremes of the spectrum, if it's just your boss who you don't like very much because they didn't sort of let you go early or whatever, or someone who's actually a proven clinical narcissist. I think it does get bandied around too much, and often the people that we're sort of accusing of being narcissistic can also be just very self-preoccupied. They're sort of clinically self-regarding and actually grandiose in that sense, and then there's actually just people who think quite a lot of themselves and have an elevated sense of self and go through life quite sort of blindly like that, which is different. I think actually also, though, what's become a very key idea for our generation particularly is I think people have got very interested in the idea of a narcissistic parent, and I think that might be partly where it's come out of, is that people are sort of starting to understand what that means and how that might have impacted them. And I think that might be partly where the current preoccupation is coming from. Yeah. Sort of exploring the idea through that particular lens has become interesting to me.
You want to understand the monster, and there's a mystery to it, and sort of the fascination of, well, where does all this come from and how, and it's relatable, and can you relate to it in some way? And those elements will come out, and that often goes back to, we talk about whether something is known about their childhood or things, but people are often will hone in on those details of saying, well, look at their childhood, or their parents, maybe their parents did this, and it's a valid comment, it's a valid consideration to say, well, what bearing did they have? I think a lot of people, maybe, and it may be a generational thing now outside of the true crime world, but people are much better at articulating possibly their own issues and and what they've experienced.
More of a vocabulary for it in a sort of everyday vernacular, in which there wasn't probably before for sort of later generations too. I think the idea of maybe it's become an easy go-to or an easy thing to say because people know it's bad. What they do know about narcissism is that
they
it's
used to
sort
say
of fun,
Not good.
They used to say
yes.
psychopath a lot of the time. They used to say, like, I
Yes,
think we used to say a
replace
lot
that
more like, oh,
almost.
they're a psychopath. They're clearly a psychopath until I was like, well, no, you know,
Actually,
like
that's not actually a
maybe
psychopath.
that 1 in 100 is, but go, oh, they have all the hallmarks of a psychopath because, you know, we read a scale or something. And I think that's been replaced a bit by narcissists. And
I
it's
think
not
that's
to
true.
say that your feelings aren't valid about feeling rejected by someone or feeling mistreated, but that sort of idea of like, no, narcissism is a pretty nasty thing and it's horrible, but it doesn't mean that everyone who's been mean to you today is.
No. I think also it's something to be sort of careful about, that actually trying to understand what truly lacking empathy really means. You know, there's sort of someone being
Yes.
insensitive and misattuned in a moment or in an exchange, and then there's actually what it really means to actually lack empathy and not actually understand, you know, not be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, essentially. And they are very different things. And I think actually now that sort of you're saying that, I think that possibly the term narcissism gets thrown around, particularly, basically to suggest that somebody was lacking in empathy in that particular moment or conversation. You do get, like Ted Bundy, you do get people who are, you know, clinically narcissistic, and therefore that separation from the care for the other enables them to go on and commit atrocious crimes, because all they are doing is sort of nurturing and feeding their own desires and needs. And so I suppose that's the much more extreme end of the spectrum. And what you always hear about sort of Ted Bundy and people like that is that they're incredibly charismatic. Same with Epstein, I suppose, in a way.
Yeah.
And that's the other key part of it. But you're charismatic for an end. It's a
And I
way
think-
of getting what you want.
Yeah, and I suppose that it's something difficult for people to reconcile. But they were so nice. They were so nice, yeah, and they were so charming.
Yes, 'cause
I
in the
never would have
split, the
thought
disparity
anything.
is massive.
And if you're fooled, then it makes you feel like the fool, and it makes you react so differently to how can someone be so callous and so lacking in empathy when you had such feeling, I guess,
When
towards
seemingly they seemed,
Seemingly, yes. Nick, do you have anything to add?
No,
There were-
I'm just like, I'm enjoying this thing. This is fascinating.
there were two things I was going to ask, and one I haven't formed fully in my head, and the other one you may not want to answer, and also you don't have to. Examples of sort of narcissism or what you spot in people who are narcissists or the psychopath. You know, everyone talks about psychopaths, psychopathy. I know there's a slight difference between the two and everything, but there are actual signs in there. But I guess without giving away details of actual patients and things, or things that you have seen or what you would recognise in people.
I think it's about that sort of manipulation, actually. I think it's actually getting a sense of when people when they don't matter. Because there is, behind the charisma, behind the sort of seeming external gregariousness, is that sense, you know, and it could sort of come to the surface in a lot of different ways, but that in the end, they don't really care. There isn't a connection between person and feeling and sort of affect. So I think, in a way, that's probably one of the, if you're sort of looking for indicators, I think a sort of seeing how whoever that person is that you're wondering about, as it were, how they use people around them, you know, and what is the quality of that interaction. And I think going back to the idea of an incredibly fragile ego, I think the idea that someone is wounded very, very easily. Very fast, very easy, and the feelings that come up seem totally disproportionate to whatever the, you know, wounding incident or inciting sort of incident is, because it could be a really sort of just, if you're in a partnership, one person saying something that seems, you know, a bit sort of offhand and they're not even really thinking about it, but where it takes that other, if they really are sort of more fundamentally narcissistic in that way, is that you just can't understand the level of reactivity.
I suppose the killer question here, how do you handle a person like that? What would be your advice to someone?
I think you should approach it through this. Not what you would think, probably. I think it's trying to understand the fragile state. That's the only way to find a way in, or a sense of understanding. I think in that sense, or kind of is the rawness of someone's ego. So in order to, and it does obviously go back to childhood and trauma and all those experiences, but trying to understand that behind the grandiosity and behind the vanity and behind the, seeming sort of expansive personality is someone who's actually incredibly vulnerable. And so, yeah, trying to get, I suppose, more empathic to that part of someone.
Except if they're
fragile
crazy and then they're coming at you with a knife.
Even then though.
If they're like, no, please, why is the knife? What does the knife represent?
Well, but if you want to understand why someone did what they did in order to help
Yes.
prevent other people doing it, then you do need to understand
Absolutely.
precisely why someone's behaved in that way, and that will always come from the weakest part of the ego, as it were.
Understanding.
The most fragile, the most fragile parts of someone are why they would act out in all the ways that people act out.
Oh, Ro, it's always a joy to speak to you, and this has been absolutely fascinating.
It's been brilliant.
Is there, just as a final quick one, is there a case that does, a true crime case or something through history, a historic one, maybe there's a modern one, that fascinates you, that is your favourite maybe, or is the one you think about a lot?
Well, I might have to think about that. I feel like all cases have gone completely from my mind.
No, I put you on the spot
I've
there,
forgotten all
sorry.
crimes.
But I do that too. People say, what's your favourite true crime? I go, I don't know. I don't know any of the crimes. I don't know any of them.
No, I can't really think of one, I have to say. Not
That's
have
good.
a very interesting answer for you, but
I think it's quite
I guess it
healthy.
all interests me.
Yes. See, you look at them and go, interesting.
Yeah, I don't think I do have a particular.
I think that's a
case.
good sign, though. If
It's pretty
there
good
was
you
one.
don't have a favourite true crime.
Yes,
Yeah.
Probably it's
is
not a
good.
bad
This one
thing.
keeps you up at night.
No, I mean, it's always interesting to try and understand the human condition better, but I don't have a particular case.
Love it, though.
I wouldn't say. Thank you very much for having me. That was
Been
lovely.
brilliant.
And
It's
for the
been
cocktails.
fascinating.
Absolute delight, Ro. Thank you so much for joining us for this special episode. We've covered many, many subjects and many things on here, and there's always room for you to come back and talk to us more. Honestly, people, what do you think? What do you think of everything that Ro shared with us, that we rambled on about, the various subjects that we've covered? Maybe there's subjects that you would like us to consider in the future, that you may have questions for Ro about. Please tell us what you think. Jump on the comments of this episode, share your thoughts, your feelings, your musings, really anything in this sphere. We know that we've touched on some darker things and we've had some lightness with it, and really it's down to your comfort level of what you want to talk about or share. We absolutely welcome it. You can do that over on Patreon. You can DM us if you have anything specific you want to ask Ro about. She's not your therapist yet, but she is available for hire if needs be. She has a very strict criteria as well. You have to be fabulous. Do send us suggestions of more topics that we can cover in the future, more strange and weird and wonderful ones that might be worth a discussion with a psychotherapist. We'd love to get into it. But while you're musing all of this, do mix up the morning dew.
Went down a treat to that.
Lovely,
Who would have
delicious.
thought?
Thank you very
Who would have
much.
thought wine? Was it wine, strawberry, and mint?
And mint.
Together at last.
It's together at
Mint,
last,
the
indeed.
mystery
but
ingredient.
It's gone down a treat. So yeah, mix one up if you can. It's really damn good.
Wonderful. Do join us on Patreon if you haven't already to get more from the Poisonous Cabinet every single week. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes if you haven't already, and message us with just any thoughts you're having. Thanks for listening, guys. We have been the people inside the Poisonous Cabinet. We will see you next week. And remember, your loved ones are trying to kill you.
Oh.